You're now tuned in into the Foster Forward Youth Podcast,
where we empower you to thrive
as we share stories, resources, and inspiration, all designed with you in mind.
your future empowered.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Foster Forward Youth Podcast. I'm Renny, a youth leader here at Foster Forward, and today we're diving into an important conversation about advocacy, legal support, and the people who help make sure youth in foster care are heard. One of the most impactful roles in the child welfare system is the court-appointed special advocate, or CASA. These individuals are appointed by the court to represent the best interests of children and youth, making sure their voices are heard and don't get lost in the system. To help us understand what this looks like in action, I'm joined here by Lauren and Kristen. You guys can introduce yourselves.
Sure. So I am Lauren Tomasiello. I am one of the CASA attorneys. I've been a CASA attorney now for 11 years. And prior to that, I was at Rhode Island Legal Services and did a small time at the Office of the Child Advocate. Absolutely love being at CASA and look forward to delving in more into it.
Hi, I'm Kristen Cuddy. I'm also one of the CASA attorneys. I've worked for CASA now for 6 years. Prior to that, I was in private practice for over a decade. Working in child welfare has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I'm really excited to have the conversation with you today.
Well, thank you guys for being here. Lauren and Kristen are here to share their experience and clear up any misconceptions and help us understand how CASA attorneys and social workers collaborate to support youth advocacy during critical times. Now, guys, for those unfamiliar, can you explain what a CASA does and what your role as a CASA attorney entails within the child welfare system, and when are they appointed?
Sure. I can start with that. So CASA was first developed back in 1978 as a volunteer program by the Family Court. Originally, it was comprised of just volunteers, but it was to support the need for advocacy for children who find themselves in the system through no fault of their own due to neglect or abuse. Eventually, the program evolved, and now at this time, there's 11 attorneys that are staffed by the Family Court, as well as social workers and a big volunteer base. The volunteers are made up of people from the community that can come in and help us on these cases and help us to visit the children and make sure that their voice is heard in court. There is a state statute, it's 4011-14, that lays out the fact that we are appointed on each case by the family court, and that appointment takes place at the arraignment, which is the first hearing that happens when the case is filed in family court. At that hearing, parents might be served, they might be appointed their own attorneys, and the family court, the judge will appoint a CASA attorney for each child. If for some reason there is a conflict, there is a group of private attorneys that can be appointed in the space of CASA if there was to be a conflict. We work for the family court. Our offices, we have 2 offices, so there's 11 of us. Most of us are in Providence. Our offices are on the 2nd floor of the Garrahy Judicial Complex, which is located on Dorrance Street. So if you ever need to find us or want to come visit, we're there on the 2nd floor. And then we have 2 attorneys and some more staff that are in Kent County in the Noel Judicial Complex there. They're on the 3rd floor if you want to go see them. We're always willing to discuss the issues, or if foster parents or anybody else involved in the case wants to call us, or if they don't know which attorney is assigned to represent the child. The main number is 401-458-3330. And feel free to call and just ask whoever answers the phone who's assigned to each child. So that's like the overarching program and how it's set up.
Well, thank you, Kristen, for sharing. So since now we know what CASA is, what is the role of the CASA social workers and how do they collaborate with CASA attorneys? Let's dive in a little bit deeper with that. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's important to know how a CASA social worker is assigned. I think it would be ideal that every case has a CASA social worker, but it's just not realistic. We just have so many cases. So a CASA social worker can be assigned in one of 2 ways. Sometimes the judge will ask that a social worker or even a volunteer be assigned from the bench, depending on a specific type of case. Or the attorney, it's really subjective. Every attorney may decide This might be a case that would be really good with one of our CASA social workers. They are an extra set of eyes and ears on our cases. We are not able as attorneys to be out every week, every month. We're always available by phone, and we always do our best to return our kids' calls or foster parents' calls or providers' calls. But we have a lot of time that we spend in court pretty much every day and almost every single morning. And usually in the afternoons, we're juggling a bunch of calendars. So the CASA social workers are that extra set of eyes and ears. And they establish the relationship with the child and the children, the foster parents. They work collaboratively with providers. They are, and most importantly, really connecting with our kids. I've had kids, the reality of the situation is your DCYF social worker may change so many times through the time a case is opened, but they have that consistency of our social worker. And that social worker can bring so much information to not only the new DCYF social worker that might come on a case, but to other providers that may be starting on cases. And then the social workers will come back to the attorneys and they will give their recommendations, their perspectives. They will let us know what services they think the family, the child may need. And they write letters that we submit to the court and the other parties on the case. And, we just try and work collaboratively together and see how we can effectively help the youth that we represent.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Lauren. I can see how the social workers and the attorneys collaborate are an important part of supporting young people and the children. Thank you. So what are some common misconceptions about the CASA program or your role that you have encountered, and how do you address them?
So I would say the first thing is that one misconception is that we are attorneys and we're appointed as the guardians ad litem for each child. We represent that child's best interest on that particular case on the DCYF court calendar. So we don't represent the child on every legal issue that may come up in that child's life during the time that the case is open to DCYF. Our primary responsibility is handling the children's case that's on that specific calendar. Sometimes that can be confusing for people because obviously other things are happening while the case is open. The communications that we have with the children, although we are attorneys, are not privileged communications. We are able to share the what we talk about with the child with other parties to the case. So whether that be the court, the judge, the social worker, DCYF, the clinicians, the school, the parents, in order to do what's in the best interest for that particular child on that issue. There's also a misconception that comes up quite a bit, as I know this is foster forward, and that with foster parents. So foster parents play a unique role in these cases. They have the most difficult role in the case because they are taking care of the child and these children on a day-to-day basis. They are handling all the medical appointments, getting the kids to school, making sure their teeth are brushed and that they're getting the hugs that they need at bedtime. And it's such a difficult role that they play, but they're actually not a party to the legal case. So they don't have any legal standing. So we're not able to share any information with them. What happens to the parents and the services that the parents are involved with and the results of those services and the efforts that the parents are making during the course of the case are extremely confidential. And we cannot share any of that information about any of that progress or lack thereof with the foster parents. And I think that's probably the most complicated and difficult thing that we have as CASA attorneys because the child is in the, being cared of the foster parents and they're very concerned, rightly so. And, we think that that's awesome that they have that level of concern. But when they call us and want to talk to us about what's happening, it really has to be a one-way street. And I know Lauren will want to add to that too, but we can just listen and we can't respond. And it's very hard to have to understand that and to explain that. And it feels to them like there might be like a disconnect because they're trying to advocate for the children and we're the CASA attorneys advocating for the children. So how do we mold the two? So what we try to explain is that we're here to listen. We want to know the information. Call us, talk to us, but you need to understand that it's very important. And we've been informed. And that's just the role of the way that the court has told us that we need to conduct these cases is the information is confidential and it cannot be shared. So I think that that's really like one of the most difficult things that we face.
And did you want to share, Lauren?
I think the only other thing I would add is that I think sometimes maybe the kids or the families or the foster parents, I think they think we're always aligned with DCYF and what DCYF wants or what they're asking the court for or what they're asking for the child, from the child. And that's not always accurate. And I think seeing us sit on the same side in the courtroom of DCYF, we sit at the same counsel table with the DCYF legal attorney, as well as the social worker, supervisor, CPI, whoever might be there. I think sometimes there may be that thought, and I think it's very natural that, they might be on, they're DCYF, or some of our kids will call and say, you, and I'm like, no, that's your social worker who wants that, not us. And so I think that's one of the other misconceptions that sometimes we're always aligned. And that is not always the case. We very often will disagree with the department and what we try to do at that point is we try to work together in an effort to have the child's best interests and to see what we can come together. But we don't always agree with
Absolutely.
them.
Well, thank you so much for clearing that up. You guys are in the best interest of the child and continue to do so. Yeah. So it's beautiful to see that, it's good to see that there are people out there that want to help the children in the foster care system. Mm-hmm. So let's move on. How do you build a relationship with young people you advocate for and get to know their needs, wishes, and personalities?
So I'll start first by saying we collect information from all over. We are reaching out to the social workers assigned. We are looking through medical records. We are reaching out to the schools. We are meeting and talking to providers. Everybody and anyone who social workers or volunteers who might be on the case. We are reaching out and getting as much information as we possibly can regarding the child or children or youth that we're representing. But I think most importantly, we're getting to know our child's needs from talking to them directly. And I think obviously it's their case, their life. And so we want to have as much input from them as possible. I can tell you just asking questions, listening to them. Our teens, I think Kristen might agree, or everyone, they are the best advocates for themselves, and their personalities shine. They will let you know when they are annoyed with you. They will let you know when you're doing your job, when they don't think you're doing your job, when they're angry. And so their personalities really do shine through. And I think that's part of one of the biggest things I love about, especially our older teens that we represent, is seeing those different personalities. And sometimes they may have a very hardened exterior, but through building the relationship with them, they really soften and they really do look to you and come to you. And that's some of the most rewarding days as a CASA attorney. And I think building a relationship with our kids just comes from really listening to them. I think calling them back, taking even 10 minutes to sit and feel their phone calls, letting their voice be heard, trying to see how we can come together to get what it is that they need or want. And, I think ultimately as well is being honest with them, being open, being honest about the case. I'm always very clear. It doesn't do anybody any favors for me to sugarcoat anything. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to say one thing in the hallway or on the phone, and then, the next day we're in court and the judge says something or somebody says something, and next thing you know, it's just not received well. So I do my best to be as open and honest as possible, even if it's not what the child or the youth wants to hear. So I think that's, and it's really about listening to them. And I will say also, if you know something's going on in their life, I think we do our best to check in with them and just even a phone call. And if you have to leave a message and they don't call you back, or it's 2 minutes or they hang up on you, at least they know that you're there and you're somebody who shows up in their corner. And I think that makes a huge difference, especially with our teenagers, and seeing us in court advocate for them. I think when they do come to court and they see us stand up and point out all the positives that they're doing in their life, because there are times when there's a lot of negative that can be put out there. And I think really just showing all the positives that are going on, I think that makes a difference and helps building that relationship.
Well, Lauren, thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
sharing. And Kristen, I can see that you guys make a big part and are a big part of a foster care youth role in their life, and it's how important it is to advocate for youth and show up for them and build relationships and having that transparency. Most importantly, is what really helps youth stay and feel connected. So, thank you so much. We're gonna move on to the next question. How can CASA attorneys advocate for a child they've never met in person or interacted with regularly? How do you make sure to get a full understanding of a child's needs?
So I think that a lot of the answers to this question go back to what
Yeah.
Lauren was just saying too, right? But every case is so different. I mean, but no matter what, the bottom line is every child's voice is so important, and we just really want to make sure that we're getting that out to you today, and to your audience, because really every child that's in foster care that's assigned to a CASA attorney is able to reach us. We're able to schedule meetings with you in person. We can come see you at school. We can go see the kids at daycare. We can go to the foster homes. We're available by email, by telephone. We are in court a lot. So we just encourage, if the teenage youth or the older youth, 18 to 21, are trying to get in touch with us, that they leave voicemails. I know that that's not always something that they like to do. But what happens is when you leave the voicemail, it's transcribed, it's typed up, and it's actually emailed to us. So even if we're stuck in court all day on an issue, we can see that, Jane Smith called and left a message, and she's having an issue at school, and she really needs to talk to us by the end of the day. And then we can step out of the courtroom and we can call back. So that's like a really important takeaway I really wanted to get across today.
Well, thank you, Kristen, so much for sharing. And I can see that, CASA attorneys, they are present, they are involved. And if you are a young person, you should leave a voicemail. I know voicemail kind of sucks sometimes. But there's with the technology and being able to transcribe it into an email, it makes it easier. It makes it accessible so you can get the help that you may need. So leave that voicemail. Don't be scared.
Let that be the lesson of the day. Leave the voicemail.
What steps do you take to ensure the child's voice is heard during the legal proceedings? So you pretty much answered the question. I don't know if you want to have an input.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I can touch on the fact of the children that are really too young, like the younger children, which some of your listeners might actually have babies themselves or be pregnant or expecting. I'm assigned to the Safe Secure Baby Court calendar as well. Myself and our colleague, Angie Perez. And so about 1/3 of my cases and the children that I represent are aged 3 and under. So a lot of babies, very cute. So one way that their voice is heard, because obviously they don't talk, is that these cases they're referred to Dr. Cynthia Longcar at the Brown Center for Women and Families. And she's able to do an infant-child assessment, parent assessment and they bring the parents in and the baby's there, and Dr. Longcar observes them. It's about like an hour to 2 hour long assessment. It's a strength-based report that's provided to the court after that assessment is done. And these reports are generated within the first 4 to 6 weeks of the case being heard on the baby court calendar. So that really is kind of like the recipe or the template for how the rest of the case is going to go. Any concerns that Dr. Longcar noted during the visit or things that she heard from the parents, any referrals for any other services, early intervention. If she wants to hear more from like a daycare provider, there's a lot of different things obviously that can come up during that, but it's basically a snapshot of the baby and the baby's needs relative to the parents at that moment in time. And then we use that to direct how the case is going to move forward. So even though the babies are too little and they are our most vulnerable, part of the population and our clients, but they, through Dr. Longcar and these reports, that's kind of how we can hear from them and what they're going to need, because we all know the science, is clear at this point that the main thing that the babies need is really the bonding and attachment with their primary caregivers at that time, and how we can do that and get as much of that for the babies and then that nurturing from those caregivers as long as it is safe as quickly as possible. So, on that calendar, we work towards having at least 3 visits a week and work towards a quicker reunification, again, as long as it's safe for the baby. So I think that has been shown to, lower the child's ACE scores, to help with like future ability to find those connections with others. And so it's a really great calendar. It's a really great program. And we've had a lot of like awesome results on the cases going forward to kind of end that cyclical nature of some of these cases, because unfortunately we see that it's generation after generation of the same families being involved into the DCYF system and the court system. And, the chief judge of the family court really put this program in place to try to stop that from happening and to kind of get ahead of some of those issues quicker in order to have a better result for the babies.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for everything that you do. We love babies here. We want to make sure babies are okay. Now, so if a child expresses a wish, a child older than 3, that might not align with what others believe is in their best interest, how do you handle that situation while still advocating for them?
So I think this goes back to being open and honest and transparent with the kid. And I will always tell the youth I represent, I always let them know I may not always agree with and I literally say these exact words. I may not always agree what it is that you want, but I will always let the court know what it is you want. But then I will always let the court know what my perspective is and what I think is in your best interest. And I think ultimately my goal is to get where that youth may want to be, but I may see a few more steps needed in order for he or she to get there where they may want it right away, whether that's independent living. Why don't we do semi-independent living first and build some of those independent living skills? That may be, I want my DCYF case closed. I don't want any of you in my life anymore. Well, how can we maybe look to do the voluntary extension of care program? Or how can we get you more independence at this point while still having them having us and giving them access to a lot of services and support. And so I think letting the court know always what that child wants, but then taking our years of experience in this field into consideration and advocating, but ultimately getting to the goal of what that child wants.
I can see that.
But it creates a lot of ups and downs when you're like, I don't think you're ready yet for that. And what can you do? You move forward afterwards.
But it's important that you guys, you focus on the child's voice, even if they may not think it's at their, what they want right now, but it's at its core, at the heart, it's for the best interest.
Absolutely. Yep.
In what ways can a CASA influence the court's decisions or a case direction? Can you share how advocacy has impacted a case's outcome?
Sure can. So, you'll hear the court say a lot on these cases that CASA is the eyes and the ears of the court, because the judges obviously aren't allowed to go out into your home or to go visit you at school, but we can. And then we can report back on, what we're seeing and what we're hearing from you. And they rely on our independent and thorough review of the file and the case with our legal knowledge to help work through the dense cases, because there are a lot of issues happening in the family's life. I mean, in any family's life, and let alone somebody who has been going through some of the struggles that a lot of the families that are involved with DCYF are going through. So there's a lot going on, and the court needs, because the calendars are busy and the court has the limited time that it does to address every single issue, they really rely on CASA to kind of, stand up and say, listen, Your Honor, from our perspective, these are the 3 biggest things that we would like the court to address today. Whether we're asking for different orders to help, secure funding for housing, or maybe towards, whatever, a cell phone bill, or trying to help the family move forward with whatever, insecurities that they may have, food, housing, etc. Or if we need, a different service involved, like if there's additional changes to visitation and spending more time with the kids or less time with the kids because an issue arose, etc. I think that those are like pretty much the main areas that we address are the placement where the child is living. We're always working towards reunification for at least the first 12 months of the case, because that's the case plan goal. Visitation, how we're going to get there towards the reunification goals, what the service needs are for the child and for the family, making sure that DCYF is following through on those referrals to the different providers, and that we're getting reports back with recommendations as to how to keep moving the case forward. And then any other concerns that come up about the child, whether it's education, needing other time in the community to do things that every other kid is allowed to do, right? So another thing I wanted to bring up before I forget is the CASA Dreams Fund.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a grant-based nonprofit organization that is run through CASA. It has a separate board of directors, separate from our staff or our team at the family court. There's fundraisers held throughout the year in order to raise money, and then the attorney, volunteer, or social worker assigned to the case can submit an application that outlines what it is that the youth is looking for to fulfill a dreams request. So it's not necessarily to get like a clothing voucher or a gift card. It's more to go to get, boxing lessons
Cheerleading camp or
a new pair of sneakers for the football team, or to go to theater, or maybe to do something on a visit with mom that mom can't really afford for you to do, whether go to launch, or maybe you go to Renny and you need new scrubs for your program at school, and grandma, who's your foster parent, can't really afford to get those for you right now. That would be totally something that we would always be able to submit a request for, and then the board would either approve or deny it, and then that item would be purchased for the youth. So it is available, and it is something that your listeners should be reaching out and asking for if there's something that they need.
Thank you so much for sharing. So leave a voice note or voicemail. Reach out if you need help, if you're a young person. That's just my input. And always, try to seek advice and be open about it. So despite the difficulties, what keeps you motivated to continue this work? Can you share a rewarding moment or a success story that reminded you why you became a CASA attorney?
So, it's funny. When Kristen and I were waiting to come in here, Kristen was like, so the last question, I decided to go general. I said, I did too. I was like, there are so many stories that we could talk about, so many individual cases. Okay. But I have to say that, I've seen amazing reunifications. I've seen tremendous guardianships. I've seen amazing adoptions. I have seen children who go into the VEC program and who become, from 18 to 21, they're gaining their independence. They're in college. I have a youth who is such a tremendous advocate, not only for herself, but for other foster children. And she goes around and speaks and advocates to legislatures and has her voice heard in that way, just as a way to advocate. And so I think, first and foremost, I love this work. I think it is such a rewarding job. I think anyone will tell you who deal on this specific calendar alone, there is a lot of emotions. There are great days. There are exhausting days. There are frustrating days, but all of it is so worth it. And I think one of the most rewarding things for me is to see a youth after they age out of the system, or you'll get an email or they need help with something and they come back to you and you just know, wow, I did make that connection. I did make a difference. Even if it's to like, hey, how can I get a copy of my birth certificate? Or how can I get this? And then they'll always follow up with the thank you. I've gotten some great emails about thank you for always being there. Thank you for not judging me. Thank you for listening to me. It's so rewarding, and it makes all of it. It makes all the right. It makes it all worth it. And I wouldn't want to do any other calendar within the family court. I love it, and we appreciate our kids, and so yeah. So I got plenty, but I think just keeping it general was where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lauren, and for all the work that you do. Kristen, would you like to share?
Thank you. Sure. Yeah. Like she said, we were talking about just keeping it in general, but I guess to add is another best thing is when you just see the families like in the wild, as we say. So we'll just be at Shaw's, or we'll be at a school event for like one of our own children or family members, and we see a family there, and maybe the kids were so little when we represented them that they don't even remember us, right? But now we can see that they're like grown up and they've survived all of these like difficult things, and they're just thriving, and they're forever with their forever family or with their biological family back together again. And I mean, those are the moments that you can look back and just say like, oh, that hearing and that motion hearing was very difficult to get through, but look at them now. Yep. And they're so happy, and they're just, living their best life. And Again, I also have some older youth that have aged out that have kept in touch and that are now having babies of their own and, are calling to ask for advice and to check in on, what programs out there are available because, I really liked so-and-so at Foster Forward that I worked with when I was a teenager. Now I'm a mom and having a baby. Like, who can I call? What's another agency that could help me with a service in the community? Not necessarily open to DCYF, but I need help getting X, Y, and Z like in my life now. Who should I call? And that's the type of stuff that is just really just was the cherry on top of the cake, right? So, I think we also have wonderful colleagues, and I've met so many great people that work for DCYF, that work at Foster Forward, that work right next to me. That, it just makes me feel so lucky. I've worked in private practice for a long time, and that, camaraderie amongst, your colleagues or whatever, it isn't something that you find in every industry. And I think in the child welfare system, as much as sometimes we don't all agree on the best plan or if there are enough placements in the state of Rhode Island, we do agree on the fact that the children's voices need to be heard and that we want everybody to be safe and healthy and live a great life. And I think that would be the most rewarding parts.
Well, wow. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. Once again, my name is Renny Vinas, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys today and learning and having a conversation about family advocacy and advocating for the youth. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share before we wrap this up?
I think for me, first of all, we appreciate you having us here. We are always willing and able and ready to come and chat with anybody. I love the message of leave a message. I love that for being the message of the day. But I think one of the things I wanted to get across too is that we're always looking for volunteers. And so if anybody was interested in volunteering with CASA, you can reach out to our volunteer coordinator, Nicole Martin, at 822-6722. Also, friendsofricasa.org is a website you can go on and get some information about volunteering and also a little bit more information about CASA. But certainly we are always willing to help in any way we can and to help our youth. So just give us a call, and thank you again for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job. Yeah, thanks so much. It was a pleasure being here. And the last bit of knowledge I just wanted to make sure got out to your listeners is about the voluntary extension of care program. I'm sure that's something that Foster Forward has all that information on their website. You can always reach out to our office or to the Office of the Child Advocate. If any youth listening right now, we're in foster care. It's for children or youth ages 18 to 21. And if you were part of the program and then you decided it didn't work for you and you stopped, you can always re-engage with that program. We would encourage you to do so. There's a lot of supports for housing, for enhanced case management, for any other issues that you may be facing. And I mean, it's just such a tough age, that 16 to 21. And if there's, not that many natural supports or not as many natural supports as you'd want to have, it's something that the program, would help you to gain more of. In order to get through that time. So that way, once you turn, 22 and beyond, that you are able to do and accomplish everything that you want to. So just remember a voluntary extension of care program in case you need the help.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Bye.